Alright, hey guys, Biko here with episode 8 of our park series in the Grand Nexus. In this episode, we're going to be theming up our Pirate River Rapids ride, which I just finally came up with the name of. I haven't even been thinking about it, and I was doing like a quick walkthrough of what I have so far in this land of the park, and realized I didn't even have a name for this ride. So anyways, I'm calling it Plunderflow. So the idea here is that the ride takes you on sort of like a journey of a pirate or a group of pirates who, not unexpectedly for a pirate persona, they are on the lookout for treasure. They get word that into the jungle there is this hidden treasure somewhere in a cave, but they know no one has come back to tell others what it is and where exactly it is. So kind of hopefully creating a little bit of suspense in terms of the ride experience. But that's kind of the backstory. Somewhat limited in what we can do in terms of the scenes and animations, so definitely was, like I was saying, a lot of trial and error in this. But I did the best I could here with the tools that we have in-game and tried to end it with a scene that betrays the reason why no one makes it back. So hopefully you guys stay tuned for the end and see how we built that, and then the POV at the end to see how it turns out with the ride experience. But here we have to start at the beginning, building out a pirate town that the ride departs from before it wanders off down the river and into the jungle. The structure style is similar to the pirate town buildings at the entrance of the region of this park. But actually this pirate tavern you're seeing here is built from scratch after I had already built those. It ends up being one of my favorite builds I've created so far in this game. Super proud of it. Also, the ending scene where this pirate tavern sort of building lives is here it is. It's something I'm pretty proud of too. So I guess we're off to a good start with this ride, I suppose. And then just after this pirate tavern, I'm not sure if I'll show any of the footage because it's a lot of just like replacing things that I've already built in previous episodes. So I probably won't show the footage there, but you'll see it in the ride POV and maybe get a glimpse here and there as we go through this time lapse. But yeah, just after this pirate tavern in the town that is sort of setting the edge of the community, just before the theoretical explorers or the riders of this ride would venture off into the jungle, there's this, I was hoping to make it appear or give off a vibe that is really the edge of anything resembling a civilization. So again, hoping to build that suspense. So using structures that I already had around the dock and stuff, I think that was a good kind of starting point for that in terms of creating that vibe. So yeah, that's what I was going for in that particular scene. Really kind of sets the tone in terms of like, okay, we're venturing out of the community, we're going off to explore here. And yeah, like I was saying, definitely helps to use pieces that you've already built, not only for consistency but also for efficiency. And for me in particular, it's super helpful in that sense, the efficiency sense, because I have limited time to play the game, and the trouble I have sticking through a project through the end as it is, with the limited time I have to play that game, and trying to prevent myself from going to different projects and really sticking it out. That limited time kind of plays a factor in my build. So that whole process of borrowing builds that you've already done and completed and kind of repurposing is something that definitely works for me. And then this, on the other hand, that I'm showing here is something I took pieces from around the other builds in the park, but it's other than, the arches here, it's more or less a brand new build in terms of like the layout and what I wanted to end up with at the end of this build. Again, I wanted to, keep the ruins sort of consistent with what we already have in the park, so it does sort of maintain this like one world immersive feeling. In terms of like the finished product, it's a completely new style, it's a new idea, it's a new structure altogether. Just again, I'm borrowing parts that I've already built where I can kind of like cut corners in that way, so to speak, and then still end up with a cool build at the end. And this is sort of just an image I had in my head as I was going through and building this ride, of what like an ancient rundown temple of sorts could look like. I knew I wanted these arched structures with several different entry points sort of in this theoretical temple, so that's what I was looking to do first, get that in place as sort of an outline and then kind of fill in from there. And I guess sticking with that plan, that's a sort of a different way of doing it for me, and I actually like how it worked out, because typically when I'm building a structure I start with the grid. It gives me the dimensions of where to sort of go from there, and it really gives me a strict outline of the building. But a lot of times I feel like when I do that, I get kind of tunnel vision after the fact, and the end result doesn't always have the sort of depth I'm looking for, if that makes sense. So this allowed me to make sure that, first that I had some depth added to this build right off the bat, where the bottom is sort of, further out and appears larger than the top. Not really sure what you would call that in terms of like architecture style, or if it really even has a name. But typically with the grid pieces, I end up with just sort of having everything perfectly straight in a stacked manner. This just allows me to give a bit more realism to it, and immersion in the end. And then from there, just adding the grid pieces to fill in those gaps, obviously, and decorate with decals and decorative pieces that bring more life to the finished product. This first cave scene was really the only thing I had planned theming wise ahead of this build. Even the layout of the track, I had this in my head of something I wanted to incorporate into this ride. It seemed to sort of naturally flow from leaving the outskirts of the pirate community, and then into this cave where there's only a pirate or two getting ready to venture out. Again, I built it with the intention of building a bit of suspense with this, and really hit home that this is the edge of this pirate civilization as these pirates know it. I think there are ways to use like pools and lazy rivers to create this sort of indoor water scenes effect in dark rides, but honestly, I have never touched anything water park related yet in my 600 plus hours of gameplay so far. So I just opted to go for these water-shaped pieces to create that effect that I was going for. The effect of like this overgrown river into the unknown sort of deal. And then just terraforming around the pieces to make it look a bit more natural and part of the environment. Then I also had to, with these water pieces, I've used them in the past, I found that I have to use the the spotlights to reflect the light off the water, so that you can actually make it out as water rather than otherwise it sort of just looks like these dark squares in the ground, which obviously is not the intent. But yeah, that's how I go about this anyway. I mentioned in an earlier episode on this pirate area that all of these builds are done before the pirate update happened. So in case you're wondering why I'm going through the trouble of making this custom dock for this scene when there's a pirate dock in this game as a piece to just drop in there. That's why all of these pirate scenes I had to create before any pirate pieces were actually available in game. But honestly, that just kind of makes me more proud of how this area is coming together so far into this point. I've sort of had to make use of other pieces not meant for this whole theme, and I think so far it's working out pretty well. So I'm pretty proud of it. That being said, with the POV at the end, you'll see some of the pirate animatronics being used, and there's probably a couple pirate pack pieces in there, but for the most part, this whole build, other than those final touches at the end, are all Sans pirate pack pieces. So. To make a bit more realism, I created this animation of the boat floating, bobbing sort of deal. I actually recently made a quick YouTube short showing how I created this bobbing, floating effect. Pretty happy with the response. It got a really good response and people seemed to find it helpful, so I'm glad that was a helpful tip for people to utilize in their water scenes. You can find this short on my channel if you're interested to see how I went about it. I'm not sure I'll show the footage in this video or not, but it is on my channel if you'd like to see that. It's definitely a cool effect and adds a layer of detail and realism to some of your builds. So initially I wanted to create this skull that you're seeing here. I wanted to create this on my own, but life was just not allowing me the time that I needed to spend on it to get it to where I would have liked it to be. So eventually I just gave up, and I used this skull blueprint off the workshop that I found. I'll share the creator code in this video, so that, you know, if you're looking for it, it's in there. But I also think as part of the pirate pack, there's now a pirate skull piece in there already. But this was really cool, and was segmented in a way that allowed me to do this with the bottom jaw to kind of open up as a triggered sequence later on in the ride. So yeah, thank you for whoever shared this on the workshop. It was definitely an important piece for me in this ride build. And here's the final scene I hinted at earlier in the video, at the start of the video. I wanted there to be this moment where the guests on ride are like, oh, here's the treasure, there it is, it's here. And also build up that suspense of like, but if no one makes it out, what's about to happen here at this point in the ride? And that's where I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I sort of needed to get creative in terms of how I was going to pull it off. I didn't know exactly how to go about it, and that's where a lot of trial and error went into it. Yeah, essentially I wanted to create this moment where, you find the treasure, and then suddenly it seems like this higher power realizes like, oh, there's trespassers in this room that they're not supposed to be in, and then it begins to flood, and that creates this urgency for the pirates, or the guests in this case, to make the escape. I had to go back to using those water shaped pieces to animate that flood scene happening. It was definitely tricky, and the limitations that we currently have with the animatronic pieces in-game doesn't allow for a lot of freedom in terms of how to animate and go about it to really, pull off the effect that I was going for. But hopefully, you guys can get the idea with how it is here. Something I'm proud of, but ultimately not exactly what I was hoping for, the end result, but kind of what I could get with the limitations that we have in the game so far in terms of the animation of different scenes and whatnot. But yeah, wrapping up this build and the theming and everything, I'll end it with a POV, but before that, this is where I'm at currently in real life with this park and the build of this park. I haven't gone forward with anything else in this park thus far. I'm thinking I'm going to move on to a different region for my next go, because I'm getting kind of not burnt out, but a little bit bored of sticking with this pirate theme that I've been building in for such a long time now. I want to try something new, so I'm going to go to a different land probably in the next few episodes. In the meantime, I wanted to get anyone's thoughts who are willing to share any ideas of what I could do with the last kind of section of this pirate themed area. Yeah, I'd love any feedback. And yeah, the area I'm referring to is like, there's this branching path at the entrance where you can go to the dock, and then the other section is what I'm referring to as the jungle wilds. So it's really just going further into the jungle. Is not like the pirate town won't be there, it's more of a jungle vibe. So I was thinking maybe a coaster could be a good choice for this area. I was also initially thinking a log flume, but that seems pretty redundant since we have this river rapids ride now. But anyways, I'm open to ideas. I would love some feedback. Doesn't have to be just one ride, maybe like a jungle walkthrough type thing with a couple concession stands and one coaster. Doesn't have to be a coaster, it could be that jungle area and have some themed up flat rides in that area too. I don't know, I'm hoping to get some inspiration if people have some ideas that I'm not thinking of. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for stopping by and watching. I hope you enjoy the POV. See ya.